Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hi, this is Craig. Just want to let you know you can now advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar podcast. For more information, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey everyone, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. I am freshly juiced up on espresso, actually, which is kind of cool. And I'm with a really cool, excellent guitar player today with Ariel Posen out of Canada. He's a singer, songwriter, guitarist, and producer. He's just done a pretty big tour of the States promoting his upcoming album, How Long. He is also a member of the Juno award-winning band, the Brothers Landreth. He's born in Winnipeg, but he spent much of his childhood on the road, traveling from show to show with his musician parents. He began playing guitar at the ripe old age of 9, and he kicked off a career that eventually found him traveling throughout the whole world for his own gigs, including shows as a member of the roots rock band, also, as I said, the Brothers Landreth. The group built its audience on the road, opening for acts like Bonnie Raitt and John Oates, and they also won a Juno Award for their debut album, Let It Lie. Several years after accepting that award, Ariel began working on an album of his own, tracking new songs in the same studio his parents once recorded their own albums. How Long is his solo debut, showcasing his chops as an instrumentalist and his talents as a songwriter. The record cast a wide net, moving from rootsy blues to R&B to melodic rock and roll, and we'll talk about the record today. Hey man, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Hey man, it's my pleasure. Nice to see you / hear you.
Talk about your parents and what they did musically. I thought that was really cool. And also, what was their biggest influence on you musically and the most important lessons you learned from them?
Well, my mom is a singer, piano player, accordion player, and my dad is a bass player and singer. And they, I want to say they had a group, but they have a group. They've just kind of been on hiatus for a decade and a bit, but they do the odd show here or there. But they were in a band for the better part of 30 years, put out a few records, were nominated for Junos, would tour around the world, but also had day gigs at home. My mom is a teacher, or they're both retired now as of just recently, but my mom was a English teacher and a music teacher, and my dad was a radio producer at the CBC.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he was there for also just about 30 years, and yeah, so they were home during the week, you could say. They were very smart about their touring and their traveling, considering that they had 2 kids. They would really only be away on weekends and whatnot. And then during the summers, when festival seasons would get crazy, they'd just take us along and we'd go for the ride.
That's wild.
So yeah, what was their biggest influence musically in that regard? I mean, when I was born, that's all I knew was their music and what they brought to me. And at the same time, and what I realize in my older years now is just how they really put a focus on family and being home and making sure my brother and I were brought up right and had a good life as kids, and not necessarily having 2 parents that were never around, because it was not like that at all. They were very in touch with that aspect. Yeah.
What kind of music did they play?
Well, the band was kind of like, it was world music. It was klezmer music. It was a melting pot of a few different styles. I mean, they'd play folk festivals most of the time, you know, if you had to pinpoint it. Sure. To festivals and whatnot. They wouldn't be doing any blues festivals or jazz festivals. It was primarily folk festivals. Yeah, like I said, my mom plays accordion, dad plays bass, or banjo, clarinet, violin, saxophone. A melting pot, if you will. Yeah,
that really is a melting pot. So how did you get what made you pick up a guitar as opposed to like piano or bass?
Well, I started on the piano. My mom had both my brother and I start on piano when we were young, and I dug it. I had no issues with it. We were both brought up actually on the Beatles, which is a huge part, and we can get into that later. That's kind of what set everything in motion for me musically. And so piano was fine. And then, like you said, I was 8 or 9, and everyone in my school, I think that would have been what, grade 4 or grade 5? I'm not sure, but everyone played guitar.
Really?
Everyone started playing guitar. You know, it was all about Green Day. It was all about Nirvana, The Offspring, Rage Against the Machine, all these bands in the mid-90s that were blowing up, like mainstream bands, but with a heavy focus on guitar. And me and my friends were like, yeah, that's what we want to be doing. Absolutely. So
this is in regular public school in Canada where everybody was playing instruments?
No, this is just like for fun. Like
okay. I'm like, wow. Yeah.
And it just became kind of the cool thing to do, you know, start playing guitar. And I was drawn to it by the Beatles, and I was drawn to it by these bands like Green Day and whatnot. Nothing Guitar Hero based, like people like Jimi Hendrix, nothing like that. And it just spoke to me. Something about it really, something about it really spoke to me. And sooner or later, I was the only one left in the dust. All my friends quit after a year or two or less, and I was the one that really stuck with it and journeyed on.
That's cool, man.
Didn't look back. I was glad for my piano training, which I'm a very basic player. I wouldn't even tell people that I'm a piano player because I'm not. But I'm grateful for that because it taught me to read music, taught me just a grand scope on music, not just instrument-based things. You know?
Sure. Totally get that, man. How long did it take you to make? Well, let me ask you this. Landreth Brothers are a top act, and I was curious what prompted you to make a solo record in the first place, because it would be really easy to sit and say, hey, I'm in a band that's reasonably successful. Let me just enjoy that. But I would give you a lot of credit for stepping out there.
Yeah, thanks, man. Basically what happened, first of all, putting out a solo record is something that I've kind of been slowly, whether I knew it or not, that subconsciously I've been working up to it my entire life, I think. And it's something that I'm glad I never rushed into doing. I'm glad it's something I didn't do just because I thought I should at a certain time of my life. It just happened very naturally. And the Bros, we had a couple of years there that were extremely busy. We were on the road. 2015, we were on the road for about 8.5 months of that year.
That's busy, man.
And it was a hard year. You know, like I got married that year. There was a lot of ups and downs that year. And after a couple years like that, it kind of wore us down, if you will. And one of the guys in the band, one of the Bros, decided he needed to take some time away from the band, and we went on a hiatus. So we were kind of left at this point where we just weren't doing anything for a while. You know, the odd gig. Hey, we're doing a New Year's gig, or we have a festival during the summer here. We'll do that. Otherwise, kind of radio silence in terms of the band.
Sure.
So I had found myself in a place where kind of messed me up because that's what I was used to doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't, before that, I made a career as a sideman, as a guitar player for artists. Hey, come on tour with me. Hey, play this gig. Hey, play on my record. You know, wide variety of gigs. And I was just doing that. So that stopped. So, you know, it took me a while still. And I just didn't have anything else going on. And I found myself moving at the time to Ireland because my wife was studying there. And so it was like starting from square one.
Yeah, there's a lot of change going on there, man, all at once.
Yeah, and it hilariously happened in perfect timing, you know? We did our last series of dates, and once our last show was done, I came back to Winnipeg, and I played a CD release gig for a good friend of mine whose record we recorded 2 years prior. She happened to have the date then. Did that gig. The next morning I was off to Ireland. I didn't really know what was going to happen. And to make a long story short, I figured, okay, I'm kind of starting from scratch again. Luckily, I was very fortunate that some people already knew who I was, thanks to the internet, thanks to the band, thanks to just things I've done already. I had a very small profile already going, which I did not expect. And that kind of helped. But I figured there's only one way for me to start really gigging out here, if that's what I want to do, is just book my own gigs, because that's how I got my start when I finished high school and I decided I wanted to play music full time. I had a band and I booked us gigs, and eventually people liked certain aspects of it and they'd call me and say, hey, can you do this gig? Sure. Hey, can you play guitar for this artist? Sure. Can you, it just went from there. So I kind of just went in full circle, and I started enjoying it. It had been so long since I was doing anything like that. But yeah, I was really enjoying it, and just decided maybe I should do some writing. I think it's time. And I should say, people have always asked me if I was ever going to be doing my own thing. And it was something that I've always brushed off. I would always say, sometime we'll get to it. Whatever. Maybe one day. I was like always just pushing it away. And to me, it just felt like the right time. I wasn't forcing it. It's almost like something was telling me, you should just take a stab at this now. I think this is your chance. So I said, okay. And I called up my friend Murray Pulver, who's a good friend of mine back from Winnipeg. And he's an amazing guitar player as well. Played with the Crash Test Dummies and a bunch of other bands from Canada. And I said, let's write. Let's do some writing. And long story short, we wrote a few tunes, and I was feeling good about them. I was really enjoying them. And fast forward a few more months, actually just under a year, I started doing a few more gigs with my band here.
In Ireland?
With my guys in Cork, yeah.
Okay.
And I happened to get a call from a friend of mine named Dudley Ross, and we were just chatting, and he said, do you want to open a couple shows for Josh Smith? And Josh is a friend of mine. He's coming through the UK. Do you want to do some shows? And I said, absolutely. Yeah, I'll open a show or two for sure. Didn't think much about it. And then he said, actually, do you want to do 4 shows? I said, yeah, that's even better. And then he came back and said, actually, man, why don't you do the whole tour and we'll do it as a co-bill, and you guys share a band. And, I said, great, let's do that. Fantastic. And we're halfway through the tour, and I already had the songs. I've been sitting on all this music, and the shows went so great. And I just had this feeling of I think this is the right thing to be doing. And I called Murray right in the middle of this tour. I actually remember we were in London, and I had just finished doing a clinic masterclass at ACM, and we were playing in London that night under the bridge, and I spilled coffee all over my shirt. I was wearing this white sweatshirt. So,
oh my God.
And we had been doing two nights of next to no sleep. We were doing a bunch of press and late night shows and driving to the next place after the show. I was just kind of a mess. So I ran into a Tesco, which is like a Walmart.
Supermarket.
Supermarket.
Yeah.
Where you can get food and dress shirts, one of those places. And I'm looking for a shirt replacement for the gig. And it just hits me there. The tour was going great. And I just called Murray and said, you know what, man, let's do this record. I'd love for you to produce it. I'm going to be back next month. Let's find a way, or not let's find a way. I'm going to find a way to make this happen. Let's do this record. Now's the time. Let's do it. And he said, yeah, man, let's do it for sure. So finished the tour. It was great. And then, the following month recorded it.
Man, first of all, congratulations. It's a really cool story. I had Josh on the show a while back. He's obviously a great player. But there's so many lessons there that I want to talk about that you just mentioned in this little journey here. Well, first of all, not just in music, but in any business, the only way you're going to make money is by getting out there. Yes. Like you said, hey, I think I need to go back out here and start, because other people will see you and things happen and this guy, and you do a good job. And that's how any business works, but especially the music business. So, credit to you for just, not, we all have a tendency sometimes to sort of, woe is me for a minute. And, that's cool to do for a minute, but man, you got to get your ass fucking out there and make something happen, because no one's going to be knocking on your door saying, hey man, I was looking for you.
and do you know why that is? It's because all those people are sitting around wondering the same thing.
Yeah. Right.
I get asked that all the time. They say, how do you, and I'm not like the shining perfect example or anything like that, but I have my experiences and people go, how do you make it in this industry? And making it to me is just getting by. That could be doing a couple gigs here or there, being an artist, being in a band, just being a session musician. It all falls under the same umbrella. But how do you just get out there? And all I tell people always is, you got to make all these things happen for yourself. No one is going to really, there's special circumstances, but generally people aren't going to go out of their way to, help you out. They will.
They'll help you out, but you got to be in motion.
It all comes from you.
Yeah.
It all comes from you.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and, you got to go out to that place that one night, because you never know who you'll meet. Or, I know you really don't want to be a part of this group or this thing, but it might not hurt to do that.
Sure.
You never know. Just don't wait by the phone. Those people that wait by their computer, waiting for the inbox waiting for an email to show up or the phone to ring, are the people that I just have a hard time in this industry. I find
it's any business.
and it's a struggle.
Yeah,
in any business. Yeah,
any business.
Absolutely.
Coming from the outside of the business world, I can tell you it's any business. Totally, man. And the other sorry, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, Ariel.
Oh, I just said, got to hustle.
Yeah, man, you have to hustle, especially nowadays in the music business. But the other cool thing is, and a lot of times people are like, there's so much to do. You don't have to do it all at once, man. You just book one gig. And then you book another gig, and then you book, and then someone calls you up and says, hey, do you want these 3? Oh, no, make it 4 gigs. No, make it a tour, like what happened to you. And the other thing that comes from this, which clearly happened with you, is all of a sudden you went from, man, I'm a little bit of a sheep looking for a shepherd, to now I'm like playing all these gigs. I feel really confident. Let's go make a record. So your confidence and your ability, what you think you can do, what you think you deserve, scales up accordingly. Once you're, motion creates other motion is what happens,
Yes.
And I think everything you said is a perfect example of that, man, for anybody listening, as to, like you said, how to get started or how to get moving. Let's talk about your record. Man, I listened to it, loved it. When you said you're a fan of, like you implied you were a fan of melodies earlier versus like guitar, that came through loud and clear, because while the guitar is great on there, it's not like a guitar record.
Exactly.
It's a nice melodic album, man. I really dug the songs.
Man.
No, I really did.
I'm glad to hear you say that. You know what? I love the guitar. The guitar is the tool that I have chosen to speak the language of music. Oh God, that sounds so cheesy. I'm sorry for that. But I love the guitar. Don't get me wrong.
It's all honest. It's good, man.
But at the end of the day, where I am right now and my background, I love songs and singing and tasty parts, and obviously I appreciate playing and whatnot. But what speaks to me, and when I'm performing, I want to play songs. I don't just, I'm not necessarily into guitar music these days. And I don't really write guitar music.
No, you don't. At least this album.
Yeah. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, because I've spent years and years into just listening to guitar players, listening to other instrumentalists. These days, honestly, I find myself listening to just artists and bands that don't even have guitar in it. Sometimes it's just songs. I want to be moved by melody or a story. But yeah, I'm glad you say it's not a guitar record, because I don't think of it as a guitar record.
No.
There is certainly a lot of guitar moments, and it was a lot of attention and care was put towards the guitars. But in a point where it's not about that. They're just there as, as textures and all that stuff. I'm really proud with how the guitars came out, and I don't know what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
No, it's cool, man.
Not a guitar record.
The thing I like most about your playing, frankly, is your tone, and I want to ask you some specifics. I mean, it's really, really tasty, and obviously you've had good recording experience as well, because for a first record, it's really clean and structured well. But I had a couple of questions for you, man. There's a lot of like broken-hearted love songs on there, man, and I was curious: is this directed or written about towards anyone or any particular incident?
There's a number of songs that refer to relationships. Well, first of all, there's a couple songs that are not necessarily autobiographical, but inspired by events or situations of other people that I know or friends of mine and their situations. But there are some songs, and it was really unintentional, but it's not a concept record in any way. But there's an overlying theme in this record of just time and reflection, and just looking back at a time, like I said, I had a couple years in this transitionary period where I was moving to a different country. The thing I was doing, put the brakes on it for a while, and I just had some other stuff, just as life goes, had some stuff going on. So it's all about looking back on that, looking past that, looking before that, just reflection and how it affects you and how you can grow from experiences, whether they're in relationships or just things that have happened or things that happen annually that remind you of things, just stuff like that.
Sure.
So there's a lot of, there's autobiographical and non-autobiographical tunes on there. Yes. That's a little of both.
Opening song, Try. The vocals in there were great. Is that you singing?
Yeah, that's me singing. Dude,
your voice is really good, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's so funny when you talk to somebody, you don't necessarily hear their their singing voice is maybe like mutually exclusive from their speaking voice. Not that your speaking voice is bad, but it's just, you don't necessarily connect those two things.
Yeah, it freaks me out, actually. It doesn't freak me out, but it kind of weirds me out when I talk to someone I know a lot of people that their speaking voice is their singing voice.
Right.
And it kind of, it's like, it's always surprising to me, and it's very cool.
Yeah.
But because just like you, I'm used to people's speaking voice, not anything like their singing voice.
Yeah.
I guess I'm one of them.
Vocals are great, man. I was really,
thank you.
I want to ask you some questions about some of the guitar stuff. You have like this sort of like muted rhythm lines or, palm rhythm lines as kind of like background, but sort of lead licks. The distortion on there, it was funny because sometimes little things that you do have a huge impact, and, you put distortion on that and it really it was like really appropriate, that little bit of, even though it's not like a guitar lead, it was just like muted rhythm stuff in the back. But I was curious, what guitar are you playing and what were you using for the distortion?
Well, for that track, and specifically you're talking about just one of the rhythm tracks, and I'm sorry to everyone listening, you're going to have to wait till January to hear this actual song. But
this is the first song on the record we're talking about.
This is the first song, yeah.
Try. Really good song.
So I'm on that track, I'm using my Sir Classic Antique, which is a Strat.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all I was running is the Sir into a Duelist pedal, which is a fantastic overdrive by my friend Jesse Davey. I don't know if you've come across him or his stuff, but first of all, he's an incredible guitar player that you should have on the show.
All right.
But he also makes spectacular. He makes overdrives and fuzz pedals. He's like a genius. And it's just a real natural sounding overdrive. And the thing that gets me the most, it's very dynamic. So you were saying that normally you wouldn't think to have something like overdrive or distortion on a part like that. A pedal like that is so dynamic. It doesn't have to be smashing overdrive. It can be really subtle and still give you kind of a lot of that hair that you want. So I'm running that pedal straight into my 2-Rock, which is a 2-Rock traditional clean, which is just like 100 watts, a lot of headroom, a lot of power, and yeah, it's just the sound I'm always hearing in my head is that amp.
Really
and
great
that combination. Yeah.
Very good tone
Thanks.
on that, man. Does Josh play 2-Rocks? He's old Fenders, I think, right?
Well, Josh always claims that his sound is a Fender Super Reverb and a Vox AC30 or AC15 in stereo. But he does, he plays 2-Rock.
I thought so.
Yeah, we both shared a 2-Rock for that UK tour. They're great amps. They're fantastic.
There's like a clique of guys, and I know he's part of that little clique that the 2-Rock guys. That's why I said I don't think I knew he had to play him, even though I think if I recall our interview, he talked about he uses old Fenders and stuff, but I knew he had to be.
You know what, man? It's this, I'm not trying to preach or anything, but I've been a fan of like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I've been a fan of John Mayer. I've been a fan of Robin Ford. A lot of guys that use that Dumble style. Yeah. Steel string singer kind of amps, and I've tried all of the companies that do similar versions of that, and I'd always wanted a 2-Rock. So playing one now, it's be like, yes, this is the sound I've been trying to find forever. So I'm
very cool, man.
But yeah, that was the setup for that specific part on that tune. Very simple.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And you were saying it was recorded well. I cannot take credit for that. That would be my friend Paul Yee, who engineered the record. And
great job.
He's got magical ears. He gets some of the best sounds that I know of. Like, he's my dude for that. Absolutely.
Do you have other musicians on there? Or did you play everything?
Oh God, yeah. I do all the singing and the Bee Gees and everything like that, and I play all the guitars, but I don't play anything else. I had David Landreth and Ryan Voth, who were in the Brothers Landreth with me as the rhythm section. And
now that explains, because it was super tight, man, that you guys always play together. Now that makes sense.
Well, I hope that comes across. We've been playing music together for 15 years.
Yeah. That was super tight, man.
We have some history musically and non-musically, and I hope it comes out in the playing. So that's great. And then I just had two friends of mine, Mark Arnold and Alex Campbell, play some whirly and some organ. It was actually a really interesting experience having two different keyboard players or piano players on the recording, because they're such different players. And I knew that I wanted one for some specific songs, and I knew that I wanted the other guy for some specific songs.
That's cool. And
yeah, I had never really done anything like that, and I'm glad how that ended up. It worked out well. That's just it.
It's like directing the assembly of a jigsaw puzzle, sort of, and you got the right pieces in there, so it's probably really rewarding once you see that. Yeah, that's cool, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
This fourth song, and I think this is your first single, How Long, right?
Fourth, How Long is the title track. The first single that's out is Fade so far.
Okay.
But How Long is the title track.
I love that. I love this song. Very deep lyrics, man. How long can this feel so wrong? That was deep shit, man. I was curious, what's the backstory to that?
Without getting too into it, that was one of the early songs that was written for the record that Murray and I had written, and it was just inspired. Hilariously enough, the story is that I had this riff, which is the main melody of the verse, da 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 da, that whole thing on the guitar. And I brought it to him, or for some reason he knew that I had been messing around with that lick, and he said, "What about this thing?" And I said, "Okay." And then we were writing at his house, and his house has got there's a nice little table at the front window at the front of the house. And it was April that we were writing it.
Oh, so I thought you were in Ireland, in Cork, when you flew back.
Yes. Well, we did a lot of writing over Skype, but I'm always traveling, and I would still end up back in Canada pretty frequently. So I found myself back, and it was April, and Winnipeg is funny because it's a place of extremes. Winters are like -30, and summers are really warm. In Celsius, it'll stay around +30 for 3 months. In Fahrenheit, that's
what is that, like
90.
70? Oh, 90. Wow,
or maybe 85, 80 or 90. It's like hot.
Yeah, I'm in Florida, so that doesn't impress me really, man.
So, anyways, we're writing. We got this idea, and we're sitting there, and it's April, and my birthday is April. And April's supposed to be spring. And in Winnipeg, it usually gets beautiful, but it was like a horrible day. It was snowing still. Or it's not that it was snowing, but there was a bunch of snow outside. It was really wet. It was just gross outside. And I sang just for fun, as a joke, "April is letting me down," which is the first lyric of the song. And I never write like this, where you just kind of take a line out of your butt and write a song about it.
Yeah.
But it led to this thing I was talking about, just reflecting on things I had been doing or things that have happened in the last few years, or just things in my life, and just trying to break yourself out. It's a pretty downer song. When I introduce it and I'm playing it live, I give a forewarning, and I just say, you guys up for a few sad songs? You guys like some sad songs? All right. Well, here's one or two actually in a row. But that's basically it. It wasn't a specific,
just an
episode of anything. Just in general, a mood and a feeling.
Is that you had some tremolo on there, I think?
Yeah. So that is my favorite pedal that I own, and it's not a pedal. It's a reverb unit. It's made by Victoria Amps. It's called the Victoria Reverberato, and basically it's a head that's the size of like a plexi.
Oh my god!
And it's got tube tremolo, but it's harmonic tremolo, which is what I basically only use.
What does that mean, harmonic tremolo?
Harmonic tremolo. I'm the worst for explaining it properly, but if you talk in terms of oh man, I'm going to get...
No, man, don't talk electronics, because that's way over my... Yeah. Talk just in terms of compare it to non...
Is more of a square wave.
Okay.
And harmonic tremolo is just a smoother wave in terms of the signal, and it sounds more... it's richer to me. It sounds more lush. Like I said, I'm not good at explaining the technical terms of it, but it's just it's a flavor of tremolo, and it's a specific style. And I use that thing whenever I can take it out. It's pretty big, so for recording sessions, I always use it, and I call it Frank, as in Frank the Tank. If you've ever seen Old School, you remember that movie?
I didn't see that movie.
Okay, it's actually pretty funny, and it still kind of holds up.
That's funny.
But I call it Frank the Tank, and that is the tremolo on it, and the tremolo on the entire record. That's that thing, and basically any album I record or produce or play guitar on, make sure that Frank is on it.
Frank the Tank.
I've run vocals through it. I've run acoustics through it, but usually it's just for electric. So yes, long story short, that is Frank, the tremolo head.
Was that your Sur on there as well with the 2-rock?
On how long? Oh, geez. It was not the Sur. I think it was either the Collings, my Collings 360.
Yep.
It was either that, or I have this Strat, which is it's actually an Eric Johnson Strat, and I've dubbed it the May You Never Strat because I did a version of this song called May You Never by John Martin, who I only discovered when I showed up in Ireland, believe it or not.
Of course, that's where you're going to find Martyn.
Like, how have I never heard of this? This is insane.
Yeah, he's intense. Good player.
I love that song. And so I just came up with this slide kind of thing, version of it that I posted online that a lot of people liked. And I played it on this Strat, on this guitar. So I would just always call it the May You Never Strat. So it was either I think it was actually the Strat, to be honest. It was the May You Never Strat on that main rhythm part on How Long.
Very cool, man. And then I wanted to talk about the song. You have a slow blues on there called Get You Back.
Yes.
It was really cool. It was a little over 6 minutes. You have like multiple vocal tracks. I assume that's all you, all the backgrounds.
Yes.
Yeah. It was really cool. Again, you're really good with, you had like these haunting guitar lines in between the choruses. Sounded great. And was that the same? Your tone. I keep asking the same question. Guitar amp distortion, because it's it sounds great. What is that?
Thank you, man. Well, that guitar and that setup was super special. The guitar I'm using on that track, and it's the same guitar, like the rhythm and then the solo. It was all the one take. It was all the same take. It's this old Tiesco guitar that I bought.
Really?
That I bought for $50 in a pawn shop in Goshen, Indiana. A few years ago when I was on the road with the bros, we were playing this place called the Ignition Cafe or something like. It's a record shop, and they have also concerts in there. Such a cool venue, and just killing some time. There was a pawn shop, and they had a bunch of guitars in there, and took a liking to it was a Tesco Del Rey. That was the model, and they're just like obviously desperate to get rid of it. They're not worth that much. It's a single gold foil.
I love gold foils. I love the old harmonies, man. That's next on my list.
It's the sound, man.
Yeah, those DeArmond gold foil pickups are just magic.
Yeah, it's special. So that guitar, I have it tuned on that track, and it lives just kind of in baritone tuning, so standard B. So the guitar's got a lot of character, and on the recording, it just anything in the room that's going on really comes out in the guitar. And so it's running in through Frank again. And I'm going through this old K amp, which wasn't mine. It was just hanging around at the studio, and it was cranked. I believe it was just cranked, and I was using this broadcast pedal by Hudson Electronics, which is one of my favorite pedals. It's like a germanium Neve preamp pedal.
I like those germanium sounds.
It's spectacular. It doesn't sound like an overdrive. It just sounds like more hair on your sound. And then halfway through the solo, where things get crazier, that's me kicking on the Jesse Davey Silicon Fuzz. Yeah,
because then you have that's a great solo out to the kind of the outro there. You do.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that's about as self-indulgent as it gets in terms of guitar on the record. I figured there had to be one song.
But it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. I know what you're saying. It wasn't. I know you're being tongue in cheek. It was a good solo. It wasn't like self-indulgent. It wasn't like No, but it was a good solo. But I know what you mean. There's not a lot of, like we talked about. It's not a guitar. No.
There's a solo on every song, but that was the one where that was the only stretched out solo on the entire thing.
Yeah.
On the entire record.
You've been touring to support the record, and I know you've been like a beast all over the road, because like I see you on social media like every day you're in a different place. I'm like, holy shit. What are some of the cooler experiences that you've had on the tour, and have you learned anything about touring as a solo act that you didn't experience or didn't get exposed to as touring as part of a group?
Well, firstly, I've learned so much just from being in a group, being a sideman in regards to the non-musical side of touring. So like tour managing, advancing shows, booking hotels, booking flights, booking musicians, doing all the behind the scenes work. I've learned so much from that sort of things, and I enjoy that kind of stuff.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
This is like a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it because I do ask stupid questions from time to time. When you guys book flights, like you guys are always paying top dollar for flights because it's always usually last minute, right?
Not always. In fact, most of the time that musicians fly for gigs, you'll only fly out for a festival or a one-off, because most of the other time you'll just drive around.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's not actually financially, it doesn't make sense to fly around everywhere. But you'll often see musicians on the red-eye flights. They'll be on the 5 a.m. flight, the cheapest one, and then they'll play till midnight, get back to the hotel at 3 a.m, and they'll be up for the 6 a.m. flight back home because it's the cheapest flight.
Okay. Because I'm always like, you talk to guys like, oh yeah, I got to fly out to a gig this weekend. They weren't expecting it. I'm like, fuck that. Isn't that like top dollar? But it's not on them. It's the artist, right?
So that kind of situation, as a sideman, when you're playing for artists that make a lot more, so to speak, I've had many times where I'm going about my week and I'm looking at my calendar and it's looking all right. And then I get a call out of the blue and say, hey, so I know that we have you flying out on Saturday morning for the gig on Saturday, and then the gig Sunday. But I know it's Wednesday at 5 p.m. right now, but we're gonna fly you tomorrow morning if that's okay. There's 2 extra things that have come up, and you go, yeah, that's fine. So, for them, sure, there's a cancellation fee and then the difference of the flight.
Yeah.
But when you're making a certain amount of money as an artist, you don't really have to blink an eye at that kind of stuff.
Sure. I was just curious. I mean, I'm sorry. I know it's, like I said, a stupid
Not
question, but I've never, because I was talking with my wife about it. I was talking about some of the unique things about just, guitar players. It's like, what? I finally found out, because like when we, we're like a normal freaking middle-aged couple, we book shit in advance, and I'm like, what? And we're always like, who the hell pays the top dollar? And I'm like, what? I finally found a group of people that are constantly paying top dollar for flights. And it's the artists or the guitar players, because they're getting called out exactly like you said, a couple of days early or whatever.
It's true. But most of the time, gigs are booked well in advance.
Okay.
You normally try to book your flights, no more than a couple months before. You don't want to, there's no need in booking something 4 to 5 months in advance. Most of the time, you're not even going to have contracts or gigs at that time, or like that, you're not going to have confirmed gigs that well in advance.
Sure.
So
thanks, man. I'm sorry to ask you that silly
question.
No,
not at all, man.
Appreciate it.
So so like I was saying, I've learned a lot on that side of things, just in terms of being organized. I'm not like a partier on the road or even off the road. I'm not, if I'm on the road, I'm there to work, I'm there to play. And, you got to take care of yourself. So you got to, if you have a 5 a.m. flight and the gig's the night before, if you can only squeeze out 3 hours of sleep, you try to get 3 hours and 5 minutes if you can. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's just where I come from. And so I learned a lot on that side and just in my own experiences. What was the original part of it? What was the first?
Sorry, I just took you off on. What were some of the cooler experiences you had on a tour? And have you learned anything as a solo versus touring with a group?
Okay. So solo learning. Yeah. As a solo artist, again, I've learned a lot from all the great people that I've had the chance to share the stage with. So as a front person, you just learn how to engage a crowd, how to interact with people. But at the end of the day, I've learned that you just have to be yourself, and people are there to see you, and people don't want a version of you that's dishonest or insincere. You just got to be yourself, and that's what people really show up to see, is they want to see you. So to make a long story short, we, as a band, we've traveled a lot, we've hit a lot of places, and I remember the days when we would show up in Lexington, Kentucky, or some random city and be stoked if there was 8 tickets sold.
Wow.
Pre-sale. And this tour was, I'm speaking just on the US tour that I finished a couple of weeks ago. I showed up in all these towns and they were jam-packed. It was wild. I did not expect that, but it's, the internet plays a big part. This, in 2018, social media and the internet can help you out in a lot of ways, and just in terms of spreading the word.
Well, you're pretty smart with that, to be honest with you. I mean, you make an effort to do that consistently. And again, it goes back to that we talked about earlier. They're not just going to show up, man. You got to work a little bit. And, I noticed that you do put that effort in there to get. I'm not on social media a lot. I'm just kind of a casual, I'm on there enough to promote my own stuff like you're doing, but, and I noticed that,
which same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed that you're always doing a good job there. You're picking up your guitar, you're picking up different guitars, you're playing different kinds of stuff. You're doing things that, look, I run a marketing company. So what you're doing, you're getting customer engagement, and that's what it's about to build any relationship,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man. So yeah, just the fact that people showed up. I would have been happy if 5 people were at each show, and every show was jam-packed with people who
It's awesome.
Sincerely are fans and like the music and like the songs and want to hear some fun guitar playing and just have a good time. And yeah, it just warmed my heart. It just reminded me and said, yeah, I think you're not making a mistake by doing this. Maybe.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really good. I'm happy for you. That's really makes you feel better when you get to a place, I'm sure. And it's like, oh, this is actually full. That's great. You got to feel like $1 million when that happens. And when you see it consistently. Yeah. The other thing is, a lot of times people don't realize they're doing that, and then all of a sudden they stop doing the marketing.
Right.
Like, oh, this is great. I don't need to do this anymore. No. It's great because you're doing that.
Yeah, you can't stop. Just because you have a win doesn't mean that you don't put the work in anymore. Typically for touring, the old age way of saying it is like, you show up to a city, one person shows up, and if you're good and they like it, you come back again, and that person tells one other person to come. And there's 2 people the next time you come. Yeah. And then that show's really good. You come back a third time. They each tell 1 or 2 people, and maybe there's 5 or 6 people. And that's a grind. Don't get me wrong. But and I don't like using the word organic, but that is the most organic way to build a fan base.
Yeah.
And to have people that will stick with you till the end, support you. You just got to keep putting the work in, though. You can't settle. And that goes even just for guitar playing. I tell people a lot in terms of improving, or just, you don't want to get worse. You always got to keep putting the work in. Because if you settle and you just go, I think I'm good for a while. I've kind of found my thing. I'm happy with what I'm sounding like. I'm just chilling now. No more work. I'm just going to do my, like that. You'll decline.
Yeah.
And you always should strive to be putting the work in and evolving and getting better at whatever it is, even if it's the same thing that you're doing. Just more and more improved, refined.
Yeah. No, totally, man. Even myself, I always try to simple, not to make this about me, but I'm always very aware of, okay, don't only interview people of a certain age or of a certain type of music, man. Open it up and broaden everything. It's just healthier and it's better for whatever you're doing, it gives you more robust,
Yeah.
Let's talk about gear for a few minutes. You talked about your Sir. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other couple of guitars would round out your top 3?
Oh man. You know what? I don't know that I can necessarily pick a go-to. I play that Sir a lot, but it's more so the style of guitar that are my go-tos. So my 2 main kind of guitars my favorite type of guitar is a Strat and a 335. Those 2 kind of guitars are the ones that I'm the most comfortable on and that I spend the most time on. So I have a couple of Strats, and I have that Sir. I have this 335 I've had for a long time that I love, and I have this Josh Williams Mockingbird, which is an amazing guitar. And the calling stuff, their 335 style guitar is the size of a 339, which is a smaller body. But they do this guitar called the Soko, which I have.
Is it the I-335 or something?
I-35.
Yeah, I-35. Yeah.
So that one's a smaller body. It's still an absolutely spectacular instrument, but I just like the full body.
Yeah.
Like right behind you there, that 335 looks nice.
Yeah, thanks, man. I feel the same because I've played 339s. I feel just a little. I'm not a very big guy, but I just like that a bigger body. And
I just like, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like I notice a big sound difference.
Oh yeah. There is a difference.
It's a feel thing. At the end of the day, it comes down to feel. And so, yeah, a Strat and a 335. If I had to pick a third, I'm not really a Les Paul guy. It took me a decade to realize I'm not. I love Les Pauls, and I have my Les Paul still. But my other callings is this 360 LTM, which is like a Les Paul and a Jazzmaster in one. And I say Jazzmaster because it has a mastery bridge on it. That would be my auxiliary pick if I had to pick one. But I love all guitars. But a Strat and a 335, that's home for me, those two types of guitars.
Anybody, talk about your tone again. Is that something that like you've worked on specifically over the years? And also, what is your, I hate to use the word secret, but your consistency? What is your tonal consistency? What's like, is there a secret behind it, or what's the one thing, or the two things that you do? I mean, I resonate with your tone. It's a very warm sound. It's kind of like the British Brown sound, but not on 10, like on 5.5 or something like that. I like that tone personally. I mean, that's funny that you say that, because that's literally what I'm doing in a way. I'm still trying to chase that tone, whatever that is. It's a never-ending journey for me. And thank you, by the way. I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
That makes me happy. I've gone through so many different iterations of the journey to finding the right. There's no right tone. There's good and bad tone, but it gets to a certain point where it's personal taste. And I love pedals. Pedals are a big part of it, but they're also not. Like, they don't define my sound or my playing in any way. If I played without them and just had an amp with reverb and something that would break up, I would be just as happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way I'm primarily getting my sound is I'll typically have at least one overdrive pedal on, always. I'll never play just straight up clean. What I do, though, is I might be a little louder. You might look at the amp and say, oh, man, that's on 4 or 5. Isn't that a little loud? Maybe you typically be between 2 or 3. And I'll go, yeah, but I'm not actually at full volume. I'm actually, like, because you said that British Brown sound.
Yeah, like
5.5.
Yeah.
I typically have my guitar volume sitting around 6 or 7, 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And what happens is it really depends on the guitar. It cleans up a lot more on a Strat, cleans up a lot more on a 330, like a humbucker kind of guitar. And it gets a bit warmer too. I hate when I come across a guitar with a treble bleed, which means that when you turn it down, it stays bright. And to me, it just gets brighter, which I don't like that at all. So you turn down and you live around 6 or 7. It just gives you a lot more headroom, and you can play a lot more dynamically. And then when you need it, when you need to go full blast, it's just your volume knob.
Yeah.
Maybe you kick on another pedal, but I used to stack a bunch of things. I don't really do a whole lot of that anymore. I typically have one thing on. I might hit it with a fuzz or maybe another overdrive. But yeah, I'm just living around 6 or 7 on the volume knob and decide, or sometimes quieter. Sometimes I'm even lower. Everything is dynamics to me. I mean, it's one of the few things that people react to. I always say people react to fast playing, and that's on any instrument. They react to when someone sings really high, and they react to dynamics. They don't realize it, but when a band breaks it down and builds it up to something gigantic and pulls it back down again, like the B.B. King thing, people don't even know what hit them, but they just know that they have to react to it.
Sure, very much so.
So that helps me just play dynamically, and that's why I choose to have my setup that way, really dependent on the volume knob. I
like the volume knob too. I use it often.
And you know what? Oh, sorry. I was going to say that I typically, like the Turok or the Benson amp I play, or the Victory stuff, higher wattage stuff helps me, because if I top out a little too early, so if I'm on stage playing a Princeton or something lower wattage, which sounds great as well, if I start breaking up and compressing too early, it just changes the way I play. I need that headroom.
Yeah.
And that's just another reason why I'm happy playing those amps. It's because it really helps me dial that in and not get stuck in a spot where I'm having to play a different way just to keep up with the band's volume if the amp can't handle it per se.
Very cool, man. Hey, how about Desert Island discs? Like, what's your top 3? No particular order, and just for today, knowing it could change 10 minutes from now, even.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I'd probably say, can one of them be 2 records?
Oh, yeah, you could double set. You can go for a box set, man.
Okay. Well, I would say Rubber Soul and Abbey Road as a dual disc set, which doesn't exist, but if it did, that would be one of them. The Beatles are a huge part of my life. What else? I gotta say, probably Stevie Ray Vaughan, Couldn't Stand the Weather. And I know a lot of people's picks is Texas Flood typically. But Couldn't Stand the Weather was the one for me that made me just like, oh my God. Like, this is what you could be doing on guitar? Like, this is, oh my.
Well, there's no wrong Stevie Ray Vaughan pick.
There's no wrong Stevie record.
Yeah, it's whatever,
but the first time I heard Scuttlebutt, I was like, what the fuck? Are you serious? This is crazy.
Good song.
And then the third one would be my current favorite record. And it's a record called Hideaway by a band called Moonchild. I think they're out of LA. And there is not a single guitar in the band. It reminds me of early Erykah Badu records.
Interesting.
and it's this band, or it's this record that I have been digging on since the end of last summer.
Moonchild, that sounds like so 60s, late 60s kind of thing, or mid 60s even. Yeah. I like that. It's
very cool. And I mean, Ask Me Again and those 3 albums would be different even now. But if I had to pick in the moment, let's go with those 3. Why not? I feel like a Police record should be on there. I feel like Regatta to Blank, maybe. Let's take out Moonchild and put Regatta to Blank. Sorry, Moonchild. I really do love your record. And I have been singing those guys' praises for a long time. But maybe Regatta to Blank. I'm a huge Police fan.
Great band. Hey, man, this is a tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
I think it's a double-edged sword in some ways, but I like that I'm fairly reserved.
Interesting.
I'm not a person. I'm never that guy in a social situation to and I feel the need to make it about me or have attention. You know, I'm the guy that kind of lays back, and if there's ever an opportunity to talk to someone, that's when I'll talk to someone. And I like to I'll ask a lot of questions. I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of a vague answer, but I think that would be it.
You like that you're fairly reserved.
Yeah, but I say it's a double-edged sword because sometimes it's not good to be the quiet guy.
That's a pretty common thing for guitarists.
Being the quiet guy?
Yeah, and I think I have another question. What is the next question, which is, and you could answer it, if you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? That's often the answer to that question is, man, I'm a little quiet, and I've done a better, the older you are, it's usually I've done a better job with that, but I could probably, still do even better and not be so quiet and, get out of my shell a little more. That's a very common musician or guitarist response.
I mean, when I was growing up and when I was a kid and in high school, I was a very, very shy dude, and I was a very quiet guy. And now where I'm at now, I'm definitely not shy anymore. And I'm definitely, I'm not necessarily a quiet guy. I'm very outgoing, and I like being out with people and hanging out. But if you put me in a room with like 10 really, or 9 super outgoing people and fiery personalities, I'll probably be the quiet guy. I probably will have a hard time getting a word in.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm that, but I've come a long way. I used to be like the real shy, quiet guy, but now I'm just a quiet guy.
So you have the same answer then that most a lot of players have. If you could change one thing, you'd probably want to be a little. You like that you're fairly reserved, but you'd want to be a little more out there, or.
I don't think that's what I would change. I don't think that would be my answer, to be honest. Because I don't mind being reserved because, like I said, I pick my moments, and I can be very outgoing. It's just not my initial reaction in a situation to go, "Hey, this is me. This is what," like I'll work into it in a very subtle way. And I'm very easygoing in that regard. I'm trying to think what I would change about myself. I don't think it would be that, to be honest.
What would it be?
I think it would be, I tend to take things personally too much. That's a trait that I do or have that is not good for anybody, I'd say. And I don't know why that is, and I can't even think of an experience that would have made me feel that way.
Sure.
Because there isn't one.
Right.
But it's a natural reaction for me if something happens, for me to feel like it was my fault or it was something that I did or a plot against me or something like that.
Age will remediate some of that as you get older. For sure. And, you could always work on it, but age definitely remediates some of that. So good news.
Oh, great news. That makes my day. All right.
When you're having a bad day, man, what do you do to make yourself feel better?
Oh, man. When I'm having a bad day, I think it varies. I mean, if I'm having a bad day, picking up a guitar won't always be the answer. If I'm having a bad day, like the last thing I might want to do is play guitar.
Sure. I
think what gets me out of a funk like that is just getting outside and getting out of the hole, so to speak.
Yeah.
And just escaping physically.
Sure. That's a big, go for a walk, even sometimes that just get out of the environment totally gives you like a healthier.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's your perception too. It's, again, like we were talking about, I mean, it's easier said than done, and this is not for everybody, but, it's up to you to control that, if you're having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And I only mean this in a simple, let's say you're having just a simple bad day. I mean, it's up to you to change your mood, and it's different for everybody, of course. And there's some people who might not be able to snap out of that. And there's some people that can blink their eyes and move on. For me, it's just not letting myself, drown in something. If having a bad day, like why make it worse by stewing over when you can just move on?
Yep.
And reset.
Totally agree with you, man. You have any non-musical superpowers?
Well, I don't know that they're superpowers anymore because I don't do them as much. But I really used to enjoy drawing and sketching when I was younger, and I just stopped doing it. I always say that I was good for my age, and then everyone else caught up, and then I just stayed at that level. But I was a basketball player in high school.
You a big guy?
I'm 6 feet.
Yeah, cool.
So I was, in terms of actual basketball players, I was short.
Yeah.
But with the people that I played with, I was taller than average, and I put a lot of time into playing. I was a huge basketball fan. Followed the NBA, followed college basketball. Sports was my life. Like, we're not just sports, but basketball and music were my life. And if I wasn't playing guitar, I spent all my time at the gym playing. I worked a lot. I worked really hard on it, and I had a big vertical, so I could dunk on a.
Really?
10-foot. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I mean, like 1 out of 5 attempts, I would dunk.
But for a 6 foot guy, that's pretty good, man.
And then I just stopped playing. Basically, when I fully dove into playing music, and I had started gigging for money and for gigs when I was 14 or 15. But once I was done high school, I made the plunge. Like, I was like, I'm fully diving in here, music. And what happens when you play basketball? Well, you jam your finger, or you do this.
Yeah, that's right.
And I once had, I was like 15 or 16, and I jammed my finger on a ball, and I ripped the tendon of my middle finger on my left hand.
Holy crap.
And I remember I had a gig. So I had a splinter on this finger. I couldn't play, and it was my fretting hand. And the middle finger is integral to the fretting hand. People like to not use their pinky. Try not using the middle finger.
Yeah.
Kind of tried reworking to play, and I thought I had it under control, but I just couldn't get it going. And I had a gig playing solo guitar for this event. I forget what it was. But my mom, bless her, she did the gig for me.
Oh, that's so funny, man. You got your mom to sub for you.
My mom subbed for me. Yeah.
That's wild, man. That's a first. That's a first. Yeah. I got my mom to sub for me. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome. She helped me out.
In fact,
stole the gig. But yeah, that would be my superpower if I had one.
Basketball, sports.
Yes, basketball. Not even other sports, just basketball. I was not good at any other ones.
Very cool, man. 2 questions left. Toughest decision you've ever had to make, or hardest thing you've ever had to do?
Well, I don't know. That's a tough question. I can think of one tough thing. I mean, it was tough, but it was a no-brainer for me. Is when my wife found out she got into school in Ireland. I was right on the cusp of, in my opinion, I was taking with my career, it was blossoming, and a lot of good things were happening. And basically what that meant was that we were just packing up everything, kind of putting it on hold and kind of saying goodbye. Well, not really saying goodbye to it. Just placing that all aside, and just starting over again. But I mean, it was a no-brainer. Like, I didn't even think twice about it. I even remember I was in Coolangatta on the Gold Coast in Australia on tour, and she called and said, I got into Ireland in Cork here. At first, I didn't even know what that was. I was like, what's Cork?
County Cork.
Yeah. And then I said, yeah, I got into Cork. And I just said, I didn't even think about it. I said, yeah, let's go. We're going.
Cool.
And then, once you hung up, it kind of sunk in a bit, and just like, okay, I guess, okay, got to sell my car, got to do all these, say goodbye and say no to all these things coming up. But I didn't really think twice about it at all.
I think a lot of that is too, like you mentioned earlier, up to you, man. You could look at something like that as, oh my God, or you could say, hey man, this is a cool adventure we're about to this is our next adventure.
And that's how I treated it. And obviously I just want to be supportive at the end of the day, because she would have done the same thing.
Sure.
In a heartbeat. But yeah, that when you say, what was a difficult decision, that's not really a good answer, because it really wasn't a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last question, man, and you may be too young, so I'm going to scale down the number. What's the biggest change in your personality over let's say the last 5 years or so, and how much of this change has been deliberate and intentional, and how much is just a part of aging? I usually say 10 years, but you're too young for me to say 10 years, because it's like an adolescent 10 years ago or something. I know you're not that young, but I know you're pretty young.
What have I noticed that has changed?
Last 5 years.
In the last 5 years. Well, first of all, with age, even if it's only 5 years, and experience, you learn a lot about things, you learn a lot about people, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn about just how you are. And it's never ending. I still feel like I'm trying to figure that out. And that
it is never ending, I assure you.
Yeah.
Unless I just I'm slower than everybody, which is also very possible. But for me, it's never fucking ending. It's always, what's the next thing you got to get done and figure out and be better.
Yeah. What have I learned about myself? Or I think
biggest change.
Biggest change is that I think I'm just more comfortable with myself. And I went through years and years thinking about how can I be a person that these people want to accept? How can I be a person that these people think will be cool? How can I be this person and I'd say in the last 5 years or so, I've really just honed in on who cares? Like,
good for you, man.
I'm going to be me, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, I think I'm just going to focus on being the best version of myself. And like I said, still trying to figure that out. But like I said, I'm still the quiet guy, but I'm not reserved. I was probably a bit more reserved 5 years ago than I am now.
Good for you.
Just being comfortable in your own skin. I think it's just, as the years go on, I get a bit more comfortable.
Good for you, Ariel. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Hey, man, I can't thank you enough for your time. Let me tell the listeners how they could find you and check it out. First of all, it's Ariel Posen, and he's really tasty guitar player. Please check him out. It's Ariel, Ariel, Posen, Posen. And a few different things I'd like you to look for and support. First of all, his new album is called How Long, and it is coming out officially, I think, right after the first of the new year.
Yeah, January 11th. It will be out.
January 11th. And so go to his website, arielposen.com, and he's got all his information on there. He is also at the end of November, which is, I guess, 2 weeks from now, going to be doing a really cool clinic in Dublin, and there's a ton of great players there. So I know I have a lot of listeners over there in Ireland, and especially in the Dublin area. So go check out. Do you know where that clinic is going to be?
I do, yeah. It's going to be November 20th, which is a Tuesday, at Music Maker in Dublin, which is a great guitar store right in city center off Grafton Street. The fine folks at the shop are having me.
Awesome.
We'll talk guitar, songs, whatever you want. Come on down. Yeah,
awesome.
Great.
That's in 6 days from the day you're hearing this. So go check him out in Dublin at Music Maker. He is going to be touring back through the States in the spring. And he just found out he will be touring Canada and England at the beginning of the year. So check him out on tour and support him, and go say hello. Tell him you heard his show and you're enjoying his music. And also, not all the time, but when he's around and available, he does give lessons, and he's always doing tracks. And if you want to talk with Ariel about either of those things, go to his website at arielposen.com. Again, it's arielposen.com, and connect with him there through the contact tab. Man, anything I missed?
I think you got it all, man.
Good. Listen, man, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I wish you a lot of success with the album, and I look forward to when it comes out, and staying in touch with you to see how well you're doing.
Hey, man, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I got to say, did I tell you this story before we?
No.
It's so funny that we're doing this. I mean, not funny that we're doing the podcast, but when we first chatted, I took a drive. My wife and I went to Minneapolis for the weekend, and it's from Winnipeg. Minneapolis is about a 6.5, 7-hour drive, and she was doing a bunch of work all summer. So she was sitting in the back seat, headphones on, doing her own thing the whole drive. I was driving, and I had just come across the podcast. So 7 hours there, I was checking out some of the episodes, a couple episodes.
God bless you.
And then on the way back, checked out a couple more. And I shit you not, I came right back after that weekend and jumped right into a production project. I was producing a record for a friend of mine. And the first day we broke for lunch, and it was like your timing was impeccable too. We went across the street for some tacos, and I get a text from a number I didn't know. Hey man, this is great.
That's so funny.
I want to see if you want to do an interview. That is so weird, man. I've just been listening to your voice for a whole weekend almost. It was hilarious.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I don't know how anybody could listen to my voice that long, but I really do appreciate that. And, it's funny because that has happened several times. And I was on the phone with somebody recently, and they said, holy shit, I can't believe that we're talking, because the same exact experience. And I said, do I sound the same on the phone as I do on the show? And he said, yeah, that's why it's so weird, because it's out of, your context has been, here I'm listening to
totally.
And yeah. Which I totally get, but
we're talking about singers that don't sound like their singing voice when they're speaking. Your podcast interview voice is your on the phone voice for sure.
Yeah, it's so well. I can barely be me, so trust me. I got very limited dimensions, man. I definitely can't be more than one person. I struggle being me as it is. But thank you, man. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the show, and I'm really glad you're on. And like I said, I'm really excited to see how you do with the album, and anything we could do to support you, man. Just let me know. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it, Ariel.
Anytime.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Please support Ariel Posen out on the road, and please listen to and order his new album when it comes out in early January. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, again, thank you for listening. Peace and love, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.